All right, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I just want to give a quick primer or an introduction to the concept of technique. So I know Brother Sam Garrett has talked about technique a lot, and how technique is a foundational postulate of our modern society. And really, this concept comes from the work of Jacques Ellul, and I'm going through his work right now, The Technological Society. And once you understand technique and what it's about and how it functions, it begins to bring into scope, into perspective, why people feel the way they do in society, why our culture the way it is the way it is, and overall it puts into perspective as well the trajectory that we're heading towards. So what is technique? Technique is prevalent in our society, and pretty much what it is increasing material production to the greatest extent that we possibly can. That's what our economy and societal order is structured towards. Increasing material production, GDP, whatever you have it, at the expense of every other quality and aspect of human existence. That is technique. So maximal efficiency at the sacrifice of everything else. And believe me, we sacrifice a lot. We in fact sacrifice everything that's most important in life. So we like religious duty, family, and I'll go through these things: religious duties, family, aesthetics, art, the good, virtue. We sacrifice all these things in exchange for production, producing more, not even good quality goods, just producing more units. That's what the society is catered towards. And really, we can see this in our culture with the destruction of the family model. So nowadays in the West, we have a system whereby both, pretty much in almost all cases, not in my case, praise God, but in almost all cases, men and women both work. And why is that the case? Why did traditional societies not have that kind of setup, but we do? It's because traditional societies, they obviously, you want to produce things, no problem, but production wasn't the most important thing. There were other factors to consider, like the societal order, like the culture, and society is overall better when we have mothers in the home, right? I think anybody can agree with that. When mom is there giving her love to the kids and teaching them the values of the family, teaching them the faith and the way, instead of sending the kids off to school, that's better, right? The kids grow up usually with less psychological issues. They're more well-adjusted. They have more of a sense of warmth in general within them, a positive attitude towards life. The wife is also happier as well. And in the technique society, remember the postulate: production above everything. Psychological well-being is not important. Why? Because psychological well-being, it doesn't produce numbers, it doesn't produce units. We have this is how the technique society thinks. We have half of the population, the women, the wives, they're all at home, when they all could be working in factories, they all could be working in corporations, they all could be typing away on a computer. That's a lot of income that we're missing out on. So you know what? We're just going to put all these women in the workplace. There you go. Sacrifice of family in exchange for production. Religious values. So if you look, every traditional religion had some day of gathering. In the Hadithan religion, it's Friday. In the Jewish religion, it's Saturday. In the in the Christian religion, it's Sunday. Where for one day throughout the week, and this is a great concept. I don't necessarily believe it's from God to pick a specific date, that this day is a holy day, as long as we don't ascribe those kinds of metaphysical qualities to them and be exaggerating in our speech. But just having a day in the week where the community gets together, they congregate, they remember the Lord, they decompress, that's a great thing for psychological well-being, for spiritual well-being, where the community gets together, they pray, they eat, they remember, and they give thanks. Well, why not? But again, technique is all about maximal efficiency. That day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever day you pick where people are getting together and praying, that's not producing units, so we can't have that anymore. Now, pretty much none of these days are honored. People work 7 days a week. There's no day where people rest. Any part of the week is open to work. We serve the materialist God. We bow before the materialism altar. Again, units, units, units. So we sacrifice religious values and Also the communal aspect that comes from having a weekly congregation and people being close together, getting to know each other. We don't need any of that stuff. We need more units. So that's gone in technique. And having a society oriented towards production and nothing else, it has profound impacts on the psychology and the spirit and the camaraderie of the people. We see this now. And what I've learned, not through my own revelation, to use that word, but not through my own studies, but rather through coming across what Jacques Ellul said, is that in such a depressing and broken technique-based society where production is key and king, you actually need all of this entertainment culture. So for the vast majority of people, so I always wonder to myself, why are people so obsessed with their entertainment? I see this in my generation, Gen Z. People can't put down the Nintendo DS, and they're reminiscing on the old days of playing Pokemon and watching Naruto and Bleach and all these shows. Why are they so attached to these things? And even not anime, like Friends, or I don't know what people grew up with, Game of Thrones. They're so obsessed with it. We have Funko Pop figurines. We dress up like them on Halloween. We cosplay them. We watch their scenes over and over. Why? And then obsession with fights like Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson and Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather. The reason we are so obsessed with entertainment is because, the vast majority of us at least, is because living in a technique-based society where, again, every other aspect and color of human existence is undermined for the sole purpose of extra production. This kind of a system is so depressing, so devoid of any real substance, so spiritually disillusioned and disattached that the entertainment is just cope. We need that stuff to cope. If you took away people's entertainment, their drugs, their drinking, why are drugs such a big deal as well? The weed and the drinking and the cocaine and harder party jokes. If you took all that stuff away, people would either kill themselves or they would start killing others. There would be mass rioting in the streets or mass suicide or both. There would be utter chaos. The entertainment culture and these dulling intoxicants, they serve as a numbing agent to soothe the pain that comes from such a society, which puts, again, material production above all things. And that's really what it's all about. And another aspect of the technique-based society is they're only interested in things that they can measure. If you can't measure it, it's not real, or it's of relative unimportance. So what are things that we can't measure? We can't measure beauty. We can't measure aesthetics. We can't measure virtue. Of course, there are objective standards of right and wrong. There are objective standards of beauty, but we can't quantify beauty. We can't quantify virtue and prudent fear. We can't quantify faith. We can't quantify camaraderie and human value and love in the community. So these things, they don't matter. They don't really exist. They're just vain human conceits. And what can we quantify, though? We can quantify units per transaction. We can quantify units that are sold. We can quantify speed of production. So let's think of McDonald's, just because I'm looking at a McDonald's sign right now as I'm driving. Instead of producing 10 Big Macs a minute, let's just say as a random number example, I've developed a machine which can produce 20 Big Macs a minute. And it doesn't matter, like, look at these fast food. Fast food is a perfect example of technique applied to food. So look at the presentation, the aesthetics of it. It looks terrible. It's unappetizing. But again, that's unimportant, because beauty and aesthetics, presentation, which is a part of cuisine, appetizing you, or watering your mouth before you eat the food, that's not important because you can't measure it. It's just this burger slapped together by some Indian guy who came here 2 weeks ago and hardly even knows the place that he works in, right? It's just something that's slapped together. You can't count it, so it doesn't matter. But what we can count is quickness, speed, 20 Big Macs in a minute instead of 10 Big Macs in a minute. Virtue, prudent fear. Are people behaving in line with God's law? Psychological maladies. You can't count these things, so they don't exist. And this applies to everything. And really what we have today in the world economy and these so-called different powers competing with each other, BRICS versus the Western powers, and Europe, or I should not say Europe, but America versus Russia versus China. You don't have really different philosophies competing with each other, like Christianity versus Islam or Judaism versus Sikhi. We don't have anything like that. Really, you just have different flavors and renditions of technique fighting against each other. Different economies that are all set up for the same purpose: maximal efficiency and production, industrial assembly line style societies. And really, that there's no point who you vote for. There's no point behind rooting for any country, because they all believe the same things. They all have the exact same values, which is production above all. And really, the person who's going to end up the victor in that fight is those who do technique the best. Those who technique the hardest, they're going to end up the winner in that combat. And another aspect of the technique-based society is machines. Our society is dominated by machines. I'm going to a factory pretty much right now. I'm driving towards work, and I'm going to start working with machines. And what that's done, at least what Jacques Ellul is pointing to, is these machines, they aren't tools of mankind, and they don't just affect our economy and our production rate, but they affect the whole order of humanity. They affect the society, they affect the psychical order, they're the psychological order, they affect the spiritual order, they affect everything. Because the more and more man begins to interact with these machines, like this car that I'm driving, or like this phone that I'm using, or like these machines I'm going to go work with to produce spices for 8 hours a day. I work in a spice factory, and all these things, it affects our mind as well. The more we begin to work with these machines, the more we become machine-like ourselves. It's assembly line style work, and man wasn't designed for that fundamentally, and it breaks him down on the inside and on the outside. There's physical problems that come with this, all kinds of arthritis and physical maladies, a destruction of the bones and the joints, stiffness, and also hurting of the mind, which again is dulled by these intoxicants and the entertainment culture. But what Jacques Ellul said is that technique produces everything it touches into a machine. It makes everything it touches into a machine. It takes out the organicness, spontaneity, and it degenerates all of the ancient cultures and art forms and crafts, shoemaking and leatherworking, I don't know, carpentry, building homes, all these ancient crafts which were passed on from father to son to grandson to great-grandson. These have been degenerated into a purely mechanized industrial machine version with no uniqueness, no character, uninspiring, no soul and spirit behind it. You even see this with AI art. I can always tell when art is, everybody can tell when art is produced by AI or videos are produced by AI. You can't quite put your finger on it, but there's something about it that seems disassociated, disattached, inhuman, and that's because they're all built on these industrial processes and calculations. There's no spontaneity to it. So that's really an introduction to the technique-based society, and I highly recommend you do what I'm doing, and that is go through this work. It's very eye-opening and enlightening. It'll bring your culture into a far more beneficial and realistic perspective. Look into the Technological Society by Jacques Ellul, and God willing, I don't think you'll regret it. I definitely don't think you will. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got to say on the matter. I hope this talk was a blessing. And yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out.